Hello and welcome to this session, Student Testing Center, a resource for accommodated students at the 2024 CU Boulder Disability Symposium. My name is David Braz and I have the pleasure of introducing Tyler Grossman and Kelly Throck Morton, who will be leading today's discussion. I'm a white male, 6 feet 2 inches tall, with black hair and a black beard, though my hair is gray. I have green eyes and I'm wearing a pink short sleeve shirt. Before I turn the session over to our presenters, I would like to read a short statement from the Disability Symposium Planning Committee, followed by a land acknowledgement. The University of Colorado Boulder is hosting the Disability Symposium to acknowledge that more work must be done to improve inclusion of persons with disabilities on the Boulder campus. Efforts to improve inclusion must focus on student, staff, and faculty. The 2021 CU Boulder Campus Climate Survey Report, which was released in April of 2022, found that 44% of undergraduate students and 47% of graduate students reported experiencing incivility in the prior 12 months. For students with disabilities, those numbers climbed to 54 and 62% respectively. The symposium is a springboard to continue campus-wide conversations on how each of us can improve inclusion on campus and improve support for all persons with disabilities. The University of Colorado Boulder, Colorado's flagship university, honors and recognizes the many contributions of Indigenous peoples in our state. CU Boulder acknowledges that it is located on the traditional territories and ancestral homelands of the Cheyenne, Arapaho, Ute, and many other Native American nations. Their forced removal from these territories has caused devastating and lasting impacts. While the University of Colorado Boulder can never undo or rectify the devastation wrought on Indigenous peoples, we commit to improving and enhancing engagement with Indigenous peoples and issues locally and globally. We'll do this by recognizing and amplifying the voices of Indigenous CU Boulder students, staff, and faculty and their work, by educating, conducting research, supporting student success, and integrating Indigenous knowledge, and by consulting, engaging, and working collaboratively with tribal nations to enhance our ability to provide access and culturally sensitive support and to recruit, retain, and graduate Native American students in a climate that is inclusive and respectful. With that, I'd like to turn this over to Tyler and Kelly.
All right, well, thank you, David. So just want to start out by saying that, yes, this is the presentation on the Student Testing Center as a resource for disability services. Very excited to be here today. This is first time that we get to present on behalf of the Student Testing Center for the Disabilities Symposium. To generally just kind of explain how we're going to do this presentation, just to ensure that we're able to get all the information that we'd like to convey across. We'll save questions for the end. If you do have questions, you're welcome to put them in chat. And again, we'll try to address it towards the end here. But just to briefly introduce myself, my name is Tyler Grossman. I am a Student Testing Center Coordinator. Generally, what that means is I help run the day-to-day operations of the Student Testing Center, which ranges from anything from helping schedule appointments for students, prepping and sending exams, and generally just working with student employees to help proctor our student exams. I'm going to turn over to my co-presenter, Kelly.
Hey everyone, my name is Kelly Throck Morton, and I am an Access Coordinator with Disability Services. So I don't work full-time with the Student Testing Center, but I do support throughout the semester as needed. A lot of the times during finals, but mainly I work directly with students for academic accommodations.
All right, thank you, Kelly. So the best way to kind of start to explain what, who we are, what we do, is to answer the question, what is the Student Testing Center? So the Student Testing Center is located on the ground floor of the Case Building, room E130, and we are a resource of disability services. Basically, the Student Testing Center is made available for CU Boulder related exams, quizzes, and tests. And our mission is to provide a professional, equitable, and safe space for eligible students to complete their exams with testing spaces that are designed for flexibility and can be adapted to meet a variety of needs and accommodations. One thing I do want to note, just because it does often get confused, is while the Student Testing Center is open to proctor any student with testing accommodations registered with disability services, we're unable to proctor the following exam formats, which includes standardized testing, things like the ACT or SAT, pass-fail, university credit or exemption exams, foreign language and achievement testing services, the CLEP exam, visiting scholar examinations, and basically any non-CU Boulder proctor-based examinations. We're strictly a student testing center for students at CU Boulder and for students with accommodations. Moving forward, I love this kind of information. I think it's really important to just kind of share who our demographic is, what exactly I'm talking about. So this information that I'm about to provide is information that is rough fall 24 data. And this does not include students with time and a half accommodations or distraction reduced environment accommodations, also known as DRE. I will be saying that fairly frequently, so I will just make the identifier that DRE just means distraction reduced environment. But as per our student population, there's nearly about 37,000 students that attend CU Boulder, and approximately 19% of those students are registered with disability services. Of the 19% of students that are registered with disability services, 26% of those students are eligible to use the Student Testing Center. For spring of 2024, our spring semester, we served over 400 eligible students for nearly 2,000 proctored exams. And now I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Kelly.
So as you can see from this graphic, there are a lot of different types of disabilities and diagnoses that our students have on campus. Like Tyler said in the last slide, nearly 37,000 students that attend CU Boulder, approximately 19% of those students are registered with our office. But these numbers just represent the students that have registered and connected with our office. And not every student that has disabilities is a part of our office. And so there could be a few different reasons for this. Mainly, students could be undiagnosed. They're unaware of the resources available to them. There's barriers to accessibility, or oftentimes there can be a stigma around disability. So that 19% may be a little bit higher, but that's just the statistic of the students that have come and identified their disabilities with us. But I wanted to start and share the top 3 categories of disability that we see the most often. The first one is psychological and psychiatric diagnosis. So this could look like depression, anxiety, OCD, eating disorders, PTSD, different things like that. And then followed by those psychiatric diagnoses, we see ADHD. And then ADHD has 3 different subcategories within it. There's inattentive, which used to be what ADD was previously diagnosed. It's the attentive ADHD type now. There's also hyperactive and then combined. And then our third most common diagnosis that we see are learning disabilities. This could look like dyslexia, which is an impact in reading, dyscalculia, which is an impact in math, dysgraphia, which is an impact in writing. There's also non-verbal learning disorders, and then impacts on processing speed. But something that I wanted to note is that the psychological and psychiatric disorders did surpass ADHD as our top category following COVID. And so I wanted to share this because there's sometimes a misconception that students have that they don't think they can have accommodations to support diagnoses like depression or anxiety, when in reality, these are, like I said, the top type of disability that we see with our office. And so I also wanted to share as well that even students that have the same diagnosis may have different accommodations set up. And so our process is really individualized for the student and how they are impacted by their disability. So students with the same diagnosis may have different functional limitations or barriers, and thus they may have different accommodations set up. And then some other examples that you can see are physical and systemic disabilities. This could be anything from arthritis, cerebral palsy, epilepsy, lupus, diabetes, multiple sclerosis. There's also cognitive and traumatic brain injuries, TBIs, head injuries, long-lasting concussions, vision, hearing, autism spectrum disorder. And then we also support students that may not have permanent disabilities, but have a temporary medical condition or an injury. So we can support students with our office that may have something along the lines of a broken limb, torn ACLs, surgery, concussions, different conditions or injuries that are impactful for the student, and they do need support to be able to access their education. But like I said, they're temporary and they're not permanent disabilities. But these are just some of the main disabilities on campus that I wanted to share with you. But obviously this list does not cover everything. There are a lot of other disabilities as well. These are just the main ones that I wanted to share. And then with the resources that we offer, as Tyler mentioned, the Student Testing Center is in the Case Building, and the Disability Services Office is in the Center for Community and in 200, which is really close to the dining hall. But what kind of services we provide within disability services are information sessions. So these general information sessions are hosted by access coordinators like myself. And they're offered to both current students and prospective students, their parents. We also have information sessions with faculty and staff members as well. But these sessions are just to provide information regarding our office, questions around documentation requirements, what academic supports are offered, any additional services, and then just kind of a space to answer general questions that anyone may have. And we also have peer academic coaching within our office as well, which is a free resource for undergraduate students registered with disability services. And so these peer academic coaches are CU students that are trained to collaborate with students in order to help them set their academic goals, increase confidence in the classroom, and then provide useful tools for everyday life. And then they can also connect them to other campus resources as well to meet their individual needs. And then our Access Plus student space is something that just opened within our office. It's also located in the Center for Community. But this new space is meant to be an area for students to gather. We want it to be able to foster community, promote social interaction, and we are also offering diverse programming as well as academic supports in the space just to be able to enhance the overall university experience for the students that are with our office. And we also do workshops, and with our programming team here at Disability Services, they offer different presentations and workshops for students, staff, and faculty throughout the year. And these presentations cover a variety of different topics, such as the process for registering for accommodations, effective communication about disabilities, strategies for developing and refining both academic and personal skills. And there is a current list of our semester workshops located on our website if you're interested. Just one that I wanted to share, we do have a final exam preparation workshop that will be coming up soon. And then obviously we do accommodations as well. Per university guidelines, reasonable accommodations are legal mandates as defined by the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA Amendments Act, Section 504 and 508 of the Rehabilitation Act. And so accommodations provide equal access to learning and minimize the impacts of a disability. So individual accommodations are determined for a student with disabilities through our office. And there are many different types of accommodations that our office sees, from housing accommodation, dining, academics. But for the purpose of this presentation, we'll mainly focus on testing accommodations a little bit later on. And then we do much more as well. These are the main ones. And then the student registration process. And so from this graphic, it may appear like a linear process, but it is in fact pretty cyclical, and students don't have to follow these steps one by one to be able to receive accommodations. But students can start by contacting our office. If they're interested in information sessions, they're welcome to schedule those. If they have just any general questions about what accommodations are, what kind of documentation is required, and just kind of the general process. But once a student is ready to register for accommodations, they can submit an application, which is located on our website. And then from there, we will schedule access meetings with the student. And if the student has documentation, they're welcome to submit it during any time throughout this process. But during the access meeting, the student will get to meet with their assigned access coordinator to be able to learn more about accommodations, share more of their experience, what their disability or diagnosis is, how it impacts them, what are the barriers they're facing, and then we're able to help provide accommodations to support and remove those barriers. And we do so both with learning from the student and their experience, as well as the submitted documentation as well. So once we've had that meeting with the students and we have documentation on file, we're able to approve students for accommodations, and then students are able to implement those accommodations from submitting their accommodation letters, contacting their professors or instructors to make sure they got those accommodations, and then just make a plan with them to identify how they will use the accommodations in their class. And then students are always welcome to engage and work with their access coordinators as needed. And so really throughout the process, if they ever have questions, they want to look at new accommodations later in the semester, or just need someone to talk to, the students are always able to work with their access coordinators. And just in general, disability services is here to ensure that students with disabilities receive reasonable accommodations and services to be able to equally participate in the academic environment. And like I said, this is the process for accommodations, but it also is a similar process for students that do have those temporary medical conditions as well. They'll go through a meeting and submit documentation, and it is a bit of a similar process. Then off to you, Tyler.
Yeah, so just going off of kind of what Kelly is talking about, some of the accommodations that get implemented, some of them are going to be academic in nature or specifically geared towards testing services. What you're seeing below is a list of some, but not all of potential accommodations that the Student Testing Center is designed to meet. I'll talk about a few of these, not going over every single one, but just briefly highlighting some of the important ones. Starting with just extended time, where it says 2.0x. Essentially, given the class time for an exam, we would multiply that class time by 2. And essentially, that would be the accommodated exam time that we can provide to students. Breaks being essentially a student can take 1 break per hour for up to 10 minutes. Without any penalty against their accommodated exam time. Readers and scribes are either electronic or humans who are working one-on-one with the student in order to help provide assistance as needed. Say if a student does need help sounding out something or having the question read to them, a reader is there to help provide that service, and same with scribe. If a student is unable to write or type an answer, a scribe is in the room there to help assist the student as needed. Some of the other accommodations you'll see on here are some of our room types. We do have our entire student testing center is designed to be a distraction reduced environment. So we have 3 different types of rooms, some of them being large rooms that fit up to 22 students, again, maintaining that distraction reduced environment. 2 to 8 person rooms for students accommodation, and of course, private rooms. And of course, just any use of specific technology that might be needed for an exam, which includes but not limited to a use of a computer for an essay or for spell check, the use of a calculator or assistive tech, which we usually work with the student and find out what their needs are so that we can better help provide that to them. Moving forward, just again, kind of touching on some of the things that I had mentioned. So the Student Testing Center, again, is designed as a distraction-reduced environment. That includes both the space itself and us as workers. We try our best to also help maintain that distraction-reduced environment. But how our center works is we currently have 4 19 to 22 large rooms that students may use, as well as 3 2 to 8 person rooms and 8 private rooms. Some of the items available from the Student Testing Center below are listed. Again, if there is scratch paper, if allowed on the exam, we can provide that to them. Scantrons as needed. Typically, we do ask professors to try to provide Scantrons if it is a specific type, but the standardized purple or blue or red, we usually have those. We provide water, pencils, erasers, calculators, if they are allowed on the exam, of course, and then noise canceling headphones and or earplugs should a student ask to use some of those. To kind of explain how the setup works, in each area of the Student Testing Center, there's about 3 areas. A proctor sits outside of the room at something called a proctoring station. The proctoring station has a dual monitor setup with timers for the exams of the day for each of the students' exams. Has Microsoft Teams available for communication between proctors as well as proctors communicating with coordinators. And our newly installed camera setup is put up on the dual monitors to help proctor the students. These cameras are designed specifically just for proctoring purposes. They do not record the students, and proctors are trained to observe the students and respond to any suspicious behavior that can be identified as cheating. They're also there to provide students with time reminders, letting them know how much time is remaining for their exam, as well as assist with any general student questions or concerns. Should a student have a clarification or a question for the professor, students are instructed to raise their hands, in which proctors are instructed to interact with the student, find out what the question is, and then report that question to a Student Testing Center coordinator. At which point, while the student is testing, one of the coordinators will reach out to the professor on the student's behalf to get a clarification and again, respond back to the student to help out as needed. All of the paper exams that we have at the exam, or pardon me, at the Student Testing Center are printed and prepared in an enclosed envelope for confidentiality. On the envelopes, it has the student's information, such as their name, the course number, and the date and time of the exam printed on the label. Canvas exams are observed through our camera monitoring system, as well as having secure testing plugins enabled through Canvas, such as Proctorio. Oftentimes that is something that a professor will set up prior to the exam itself. For any reason, if the exam or requires a computer accommodation, we do have computers in our testing spaces, and the computers themselves are able to have the coordinators disable internet connection with only access to a Word document for a student's accommodation. Although the Student Testing Center is not a computer lab, I want to emphasize we do have computers, but we're not an entire computer lab. We are able to provide some computer monitors to students as needed for their accommodation purposes. So I think with the Student Testing Center, it's really helpful to kind of get an idea on how it operates for students, what's expected of students using us as a resource. So with students and their appointments, upon arrival, students must adhere to the Student Testing Center guidelines in order to test. This includes, but is not limited to, just showing proper ID to the front office student assistants, placing all unnecessary items away in lockers that are provided in the Student Testing Center front lobby, and remaining quiet while testing is occurring as to not disturb other testers that are currently taking their exams. We do not allow any personal belongings in the testing room, so items such as backpacks versus especially their cell phones. And again, and the intention of why lockers are provided to student testers to store these items. If for some reason there is a certain prohibited item that is needed due to an accommodation, oftentimes it's usually a piece of technology used for medical purposes, something like a glucose monitoring device. Students usually need to inform the Student Testing Center coordinator beforehand, just show what instrument or device that they have, just so we can ensure it's not a phone or a smart device or anything like that, before they're allowed to take it back to the exam room. With the, again, amount of exams that we see per day, per week, things like that, they're usually scheduled to be at specific times, which is why we usually ask students to arrive at least 15 minutes prior to their scheduled appointment time, just so we can ensure that they get checked in and they can start their exam on time. During and after an exam, accessing any locker materials during an exam is not permitted unless, again, it's for an accommodation purpose. Students are typically not allowed to use restrooms during the exam unless otherwise permitted by the professor, or if a student has a breaks accommodation. Any behavior that appears to be cheating or disruptive usually will be questioned and reported to the professor. And this is one of the reasons why we have proctors available, just to ensure that the SDC guidelines are being adhered to. And any questions or concerns, students are asked to raise their hands so that the proctor might be able to assist. Once completed, we do collect all exam materials at the end, and we usually try to ask the students to wipe down their desk space before leaving so we can maintain a clean and cleanly environment, also contributing to that distraction reduce environment that we try to maintain. So one of the often questions that we get is, how does someone schedule an appointment for the Student Testing Center? How do they do that? So in order to test at the Student Testing Center, eligible students must be approved for accommodations by Disability Services. After being approved for testing accommodations by Disability Services, a student is instructed to meet with their professor and discuss how they want their accommodations to be met. This prompt will come from the student's accommodation letter that is sent to their Accommodate portal, along with their access coordinator, reinforcing the need to talk to their professor as well. With exams, we do ask professors to schedule the exams at least 5 days in advance. This is to help ensure that we have proctors and space available so that we can proctor the exam. Information on how to schedule an exam can be found on the link provided on the page that you see here. This page will allow you to fill out a student testing form, which is located in that blue lettering you can see in the image below. But essentially, if you have questions on how to schedule an exam, you are more than welcome to email us at testing@colorado.edu. Otherwise, if you're trying to schedule an appointment, we usually recommend visit our website and click on the area where it says how to schedule an exam. As far as eligibility goes for students, again, the Student Testing Center is made to be for students with accommodations that have been approved by Disability Services. However, we do need to note that time and a half accommodations and distraction reduced environment accommodations should be provided by the professor should a student have only these accommodations as stated in the student's accommodation letter from Disability Services. To find out a little bit more about eligibility, you can click on the following link that I have posted on that slide there. However, we do note that oftentimes it can be difficult to find space or find time to proctor a student. We usually recommend resources like the EMS registering system that provides room spaces to professors and TAs as needed. We also highly encourage to meet with within their department, as sometimes certain courses or certain professors will have plans on how to accommodate students with the extended accommodated time. As far as confirmations go, once the student testing form is complete, the request will automatically be sent to our inbox. And in the request, it will ask you for all the exam-specific information that we need to know to schedule the appointment. The request is typically processed within 1 to 2 days, and any follow-up questions or need for additional information will be sent to the professor before we confirm the request. After all the information is accounted for, the Student Testing Center will send an email out to the professor confirming all the details, including dates and times. There's typically a template that we provide to professors for them to communicate this information to the students, as the Student Testing Center does not provide reminders for students. Again, scheduling an appointment should be a conversation between student and the professor can always send us a form so that we can make the appointment happen. The confirmation template is general language and general information about the Student Testing Center that you can see in the picture posted below. But the professor will email their students the confirmation, of course, adding the details of the date and time. And once a student receives this information from their professor to arrive on exam day, again, it's just generally expected that the student will adhere to the guidelines of the Student Testing Center as noted in the confirmation template. So another big question that we usually get is going to be regarding finals week, especially as we're more than halfway through the semester, something like that, and finals week is gradually approaching. I want to take this time to try to answer some of our frequently asked questions. So with finals week, our hours of operation, the student testing hours do vary during finals week as compared to our normal hours of operation, but we are open during all 5 days of finals within campus designated testing times, typically being around 7:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. With exams having a staggered start, which I will mention later. Due to the high volume of students that we receive, again, throughout the semester, the Student Testing Center does not allow walk-in appointments during finals, just for the sheer volume that we see during this time. This is why we ask professors to fill out a finals request form. Due to the, again, the high volume of students that we receive, not all requests will be accepted if a student's accommodations can be fulfilled by the professor. For example, being if a student just has time and a half and or distraction reduced environment accommodations. Professors must submit their finals request form with a final request form found on the student testing webpage at least 1 week prior to the first day of finals. The earlier the better, it will be great. But once the form becomes active, an email gets sent out to interested professors, and it will let them know when the student testing form is available, when navigating the link or searching on the Student Testing Center webpage and finding information under the finals information. Outside of that, again, we try to encourage professors to accommodate the students with time and a half and or distraction reduced environment accommodations. However, if the professor, if by any means is unable to meet these accommodations through other resources that I might have mentioned, like the EMS room reservation system or within their department, we may be able to proctor these students should we have the space and proctors available. Professors will receive a confirmation at least 2 weeks prior to the start of final exams if we have received a time and a half and DRE request. If we're able to add them to our list, we will let the professor know as soon as possible. Last thing mentioning is the question about staggered start times. So again, with the large amount of students that we do see during finals week, I think I had mentioned that we see nearly 2,000 exams per semester. About 1,000 of those exams are during the regular semester, and the other 1,000 are specifically during finals week. So we offer staggered start times, basically depending on the student's availability and their accommodations. But students will be scheduled between one of the start times, either in the early morning, which is either 8 a.m. or 8:45 a.m., and one in the afternoon, which is either 1 p.m. or 1:45 p.m. This only exception being to students with accommodations that require a testing appointment outside of these available times, which again will vary on a case-by-case basis. Outside of that, just tackling some of our other frequently asked questions. This is just the kind of time to give the general information for anybody who is interested, but generally speaking, our hours of operation, the student testing hours during the spring and fall semesters are Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. and with summer hours being Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. This does not include government holidays, campus closures, or of course, snow and winter delays, as we know that the wintry months are coming fairly soon. We don't do, unfortunately, non-CU proctored exams. Generally speaking, if somebody reaches out and asking if we can do a non-proctored exam like the GED or Accuplacer or something like that, the short answer is no, we don't, unfortunately. The CU Boulder Student Testing Center does not proctor exams outside of the university. However, we always do recommend outside resources. Usually my go-to resource I like to recommend is Front Range Community College. They're a wonderful community college that allows for outside proctoring of exams, things like, again, the Accuplacer, GED, or any type of certification exams. For non-accommodated exams, again, the Student Testing Center is specifically a resource for students registered with disability services and that they have eligible accommodations that would allow them to test in the Student Testing Center. As departments and professors have their own policies, we leave it to professors and students to communicate us how to handle if a student misses an exam. And lastly, again, just referring back to the time and a half and or distraction reduced environment accommodations, we do ask professors and students to have those conversations about accommodations as students decide what accommodations they do want to use for which courses. To meet these accommodations, the distraction reduced environment and the time and a half, again, professors in the past have worked within their department, as many departments may have plans and teacher assistants for meeting these accommodations, or again, systems like EMS, which I've included in a link on this slide in case room reservations are required. I know I did a lot of talking, so I apologize if my voice is not the most pleasant to hear. So that is why I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Kelly here to talk about some of our other campus resources.
Thank you, Tyler. This is just one of the last slides that we wanted to share with you. These are a list of campus resources that our office works really closely with, and also the students that we serve. And so it could be, you know, referring students to these different offices or how our office works with them. I'm hoping to share a little bit more insight with that. So the first office is the Digital Accessibility Office, or the DAO. So the DAO's mission is to improve the accessibility of the digital campus environment, and to be able to increase opportunities for participation within the digital life of university for students with disabilities. And so, you know, they do a lot with this. They could do trainings for staff to help support making sure any different type of online content is accessible. And we also work really closely with the DAO to support our post-production captioning accommodation for students that may be deaf or hard of hearing. And so this is a great resource if you ever are wanting to learn about how to make your course, if it's digital or if it has any online content, just more accessible. And then we also work really closely with and refer students to counseling and psychiatric services, CAPS, for any mental health concerns. If you're not aware, counseling does one-on-one therapy, group sessions, workshops, kind of catering in different types of anxiety, stress. So this is a really great resource, as well as student support and case management, SSCM. A lot of our students that may need more support aside from what accommodations can offer, or may have any different kind of extenuating circumstances that may need additional support, can get referred to a case manager to be able to help support them in their time here at CU to reduce that experience and be able to set them up with different resources, both on and off campus, to support. Health services, Wardenburg as well, and the chronic care team may be useful for students with disabilities as well. Kind of with all the counseling and psychiatric in Wardenburg, sometimes students are working directly with these providers, and we work closely with them for documentation for our office, and are just a great resource for students on campus. And tutoring resources as well. CU has a lot of tutoring resources that's available to any student. In that link, it really just kind of walks you through the different types of tutoring. I know there's ASAP tutoring for first-year students, and then a lot of different tutoring specialized to different types of courses. And then academic advisors and coaches also are really helpful for students within their specific college. And so, like I talked about earlier, we do have academic coaching within our office, which is more for students with executive functioning skills they may want to work on, but there's also academic coaches within the different colleges here on campus, and as well as just having their academic advisors to be a part of what courses are available, helping to plan out to schedule. And then the Office of Institutional Equity and Compliance, OIEC, is available. Anytime we have worked with them, it could be for a couple different reasons. If there's ever any discrimination or students feel that they haven't had accommodations received or that there was active discrimination, they can file an OIEC report. And then the ADA office also provides accommodations, but for employees instead of students. And so this is really for anyone that's a staff, faculty, employee here on campus. Student employees can use the ADA office for accommodations, but when it comes to accommodations for housing, dining, parking, academics, students can come through our office for those accommodations. But like I said, we just wanted to share these resources in case maybe you weren't aware of any of these or ever need to refer students to these. These are some of the most popular, not popular, but just some of the most closely offices that we work with. And so I just wanted to make sure all of you are aware of these as well.
I want to thank you all again for participating at the symposium and sharing your knowledge and information about the testing center. We really look forward to having this uploaded to our YouTube channel so that way the information can be accessible. I understand that perhaps down the line, some of the information may change based on changes in policy. So if we do need to take it down at some point because the information is no longer accurate, just please reach out to our offices and we'll certainly be sure to do that. Thank you again for presenting today and have a great day.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.